Yesterday, a bunch of members of Congress with health care paid for by taxpayers went to the White House and celebrated a handout for corporations that sends jobs overseas. Companies that shut down in Mansfield and Zanesville and Lima and Toledo and moved to Wuhan and Xi'an and Shanghai and Guangzhou. Families here in America at the same time, and this is just, I'm still incredulous about this, Madam President. Families in this country at the same time, in this state of Virginia, just a few miles from here, are getting letters in the mail saying their kids are about to be kicked off of their health insurance through something that was bipartisan and never interrupted for 20 years since Chairman Hatch and Senator Rockefeller and Senator Kennedy wrote this bill to create CHIP, and a number of us worked on it in the House of Representatives. Because Congress hadn't done its job. Think about that, Madam President. Because Congress hasn't done its job. We're about to go home for Christmas. Most of us, and those that don't celebrate Christmas, are about to go home for the holidays and celebrate the new year. My grandchildren are coming up from Columbus, and another one coming from the Virgin Islands with his father and with our son and his daughter-in-law. We're going to go home, and our families have health insurance. But members of Congress that get good health insurance paid for by taxpayers are willing to leave here and not reauthorize, not continue the Children's Health Insurance Program. And to make it worse, several states, including Virginia, Ohio is in a little better position because there's a little more money left over to take care of this. But letters are going out in state after state after state to parents saying, sorry, the health insurance for your children is going to expire. The health insurance for your children will no longer be there. Imagine you're a parent and you get this letter. You're just vaguely aware that Congress is fighting about something. You're vaguely aware of the hard-heartedness from a whole lot of people in this Congress. You're vaguely aware that a bunch of politicians, privileged elected officials who make good salaries and get good benefits, are just going to turn their backs on you. You don't really think much about that. All you know is you tear this piece of paper, you tear open this envelope, and you find out, you start reading this letter, and you see, oh my gosh, the insurance for my children. Now, these are parents. Overwhelmingly, these parents are people that are working. They're making $8, $10, $12, $15 an hour. They're not making enough that they can afford insurance for their families. They're not working at a job where insurance is provided as part of the compensation that your employer is paying you. So that's why the Children's Health Insurance Program is so important. A new report from the Georgetown University Center for Children and Families report that 1.9 million children could lose coverage in January. 1.9 million children. Almost all of them have a mother or a father who will open a letter and see that, oh my gosh, the insurance for my daughter, for my son is about to expire. That's 1.9 million in January. Another 1 million will lose insurance by the end of February. Parents will panic, parents will be confused, parents, to be sure, will have their Christmas ruined by this. Think about those families getting that letter. It should be a joyful time of year for families, spending time with family, enjoying the holidays, but imagine checking that mailbox, kind of thinking maybe this is a Christmas card, and opening it and finding out it's that letter. Imagine telling your daughter, I'm sorry, honey, Santa's not going to bring much this year. We don't make a lot of money, but you know that, but we won't have any presents under the tree. But then you got to look into your children's eyes. You got to look into your son's eyes. You got to look into your daughter's eyes. You hope they don't see the worry in your eyes because you just got this letter. Now you're wondering how you'll afford to take him to the doctor if she gets sick, if he gets sick. These are often families with two working parents who, as I said, aren't lucky enough to work for an employer who provides insurance. They're families with children who have special needs. Like Crystal Lett and her son Noble, a first grader in Dublin, Ohio. It's a suburb just northwest of Columbus, west and northwest of Columbus. Crystal and her son Noble, I met them. This is obviously Noble. I met him and his mother, Crystal, in Washington this spring. They came all the way from Ohio to talk about what CHIP means to their family. Noble was born with a rare genetic disorder. He needs 3 therapy sessions a week. He needs daily hormone injections to treat his condition. Noble's medications run about $1,500 a month. I talked to Crystal again at the end of last month. She and her family Of course she would be. She and her family are scared to death about what will happen to them if Congress doesn't save CHIP. She said, quote, "CHIP is the difference between living a middle-class lifestyle or being part of the poverty line." A difference between a middle-class lifestyle or being part of the poverty line. Congress just yesterday, the day before, this week, over the last several weeks, Congress was busy. Congress had the time to hand out massive tax cuts to the richest Americans in the biggest corporations, but didn't have time to help these families. Some of you may have been in this chamber a few nights ago when I pointed down the hall to Senator McConnell's office, the Senate Republican leader, and describing the lobbyists that went in and out of his office to get these tax breaks, the lobbyists from the oil company and from the oil industry, the lobbyists walking in and out of Senator McConnell's office, the leader's office, from the tobacco companies, the lobbyists from the big drug companies, the lobbyists from Wall Street going in and out of this office. You know, Madam President, when we went when we looked down the hall at Senator McConnell's office, you know who didn't come out of his office? There were no lobbyists for the Children's Health Insurance Program, because you know what? Children like Noble don't have lobbyists. They can't hire lobbyists. They're just hoping to keep their head above water because they have a child who needs medical attention. And any parent obviously can need medical attention. That's the importance of CHIP. So CHIP doesn't have a lobbyist. CHIP has people like Crystal Lett, who stands up for her family, who stands up for her children. But she can't come to Washington full time. She came here with a delegation from Nationwide Children's Hospital in Columbus. Congress had time to hand out these massive tax cuts, but they don't have time. They don't have time for Noble Lett. It's a disgrace. It's a program that was bipartisan. It's always been bipartisan. It was voted out of committee bipartisan, but I guess the lobbyists haven't visited the right crowd of lobbyists hasn't visited Senator McConnell down the hall in his office. It's despicable. We passed a bipartisan CHIP extension out of finance. It's ready to go. If Republican leaders would put it on the floor today, it would pass. I assume it would pass with at least 90 votes. There's no excuse for this delay. There's talk the House is going to pass a 3-month CHIP extension. We've never done that. We've extended CHIP 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. This is going to be a 5-year extension. That's what we ought to do. They're going to do a 3-month extension. 3 months provides no certainty to the states that are running CHIP. It provides no certainty to Crystal Lett to take care of Noble and manage his health care. It provides no certainty to anybody. The presiding officer state of Alabama are already taking steps to close down their programs and freeze enrollment. I know that Senator Strange doesn't want that to happen, but I also know that Senate Republicans need to talk to their leader to make this happen. States have to give families a heads up so these parents have time to do what they can. Whether maybe some of these parents can find an alternative source of coverage. Maybe they're going to fit in one more doctor's appointment before their coverage lapses. Think of that. You get this letter in the mail, Mr. President. You get this letter in the mail saying the insurance for your children is about to expire. So what do? You start dialing the hospital and dialing the doctor's office because you have CHIP coverage for another month or another 5 weeks or whatever, and you start scheduling any possible appointment you can, Christmas season notwithstanding. Providing a 3-month extension doesn't solve this problem. It just makes the situation more complicated. This body can pass massive permanent tax cuts, but they can't give families certainty. I know the tax cuts were permanent for corporations, and I know they're temporary for individual people in this country. Of course, this Congress, as special interest controlled as it is, of course they take care of corporations first, but it'd be nice if they gave some certainty to these children's families. I want my colleagues to explain to the Crystal Letts in your state, because every state has thousands and thousands and thousands of concerned parents that don't know what to do about the expiration of this. My state has 209,000 children who rely on this program. Senator Hatch said last month we're going to get it done. Now we're hearing that Senator McConnell is only going to let us vote on a 3-month extension. Only, Mr. President, it's about whose side are you on. Do we work for corporations that send our jobs overseas, or do we work for families like Crystal Lett and her son Noble? Do we work for families who might wake up on Christmas morning without health insurance? I guess the answer is pretty clear. Most people in this body are working for large corporations that are getting huge tax cuts, that send their jobs overseas, and they're turning their backs on Christmas morning on those families that need us to just simply do our jobs and pass this extension of the Children's Health Insurance Program.